Matt, there's been a drought in the UFC, and farmers, you want to tend to your crops because we have the return of the Tractor. Michel Prazeres, he's going to be taking on one really tough out in Kazakhstan, Shavkat Rakhmonov, and Matt. For Shavkat Rakhmonov, you can't have a better debut than he did against Cowboy Alex Oliveira. And if you don't know Kazakhstan's Rakhmonov, this guy is one special fighter. 13-0, former M1 Global welterweight champion. You want to go back and have a lot of fun. Well, you go back and watch his fight against Odilov. You go back and watch his fight against Danilo Prekaza. You go back and watch some of these fights that you can find for free on YouTube, but also maybe you got to pay a little bit of money on Fight TV. He's such a dynamic striker. He has a great submission game. His wrestling defense is I mean, he'll give up a takedown to get a submission. He will then take you down. He'll have some judo throws, some spinning kicks to the body. He is an all-action type of fighter, and that's what made his fight against Alex Oliveira so much fun. He was originally supposed to be the first fighter of Kazakhstan to fight in the UFC, but fights fell out. He's supposed to take on Bartosz Fabinski. He's supposed to take on Ramzan Ameev. He's supposed to take on Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos, and then he ended up with Alex Oliveira. Matt, the promotion put a lot of stock in Shavkat Rakhmonov coming into the UFC, giving him names like that. And for him to be taking on Michel Prazeres, it's a little weird because for Prazeres, he's been in the UFC since 2013. Now, the biggest glaring hole of Michel Prazeres is not the fact that he is probably the smallest welterweight you've ever seen. I mean, we're bridging on Deron Winn type territory because the guy's 5'6" at 170. And is it of his fault? Yeah, it's 100% his fault. Now, I wrote this down. He's had 4 fights at 170 in his career. He's had 9 fights in the UFC at 155. 9 UFC fights at 55, 4 at 170. But why?
I know.
This is why. He missed weight at 155 pounds. He fought Gilbert Burns. He weighed 158. He won the fight. Great. That's awesome. Cool. He was a plus 200 underdog. So that's a big win. Then he fought Mads Burnell. He weighed 159 pounds for that fight. He was a minus 370 favorite. Then he ended up fighting Desmond Green. He weighed 161. So they made a move up to 170. Beat Zach Cummins by split. He beats Bartosz Fabinski by guillotine. That fight was insane. And then he lost to the Austrian wonder boy, EFC's own, Ismail Nardiev, his last time out. 2019, that was in February. But here's the problem. Michel Prazeres is going to give up a huge advantage in height and reach in this fight. 9 inches of height, 10 inches of reach, and oh, by the way, why has he been away since 2019? Why is he coming into this fight at what, almost 40 years old? Oh, well, it's fun. I have it here. Matt, in a 2020 USADA article, statement, he tested positive for exogenous boldenone and its metabolite dating back to a 2019 urine sample, March 2019. That's the exact same thing that Bruno Silva took, who fought last weekend. So, hey, maybe it's a premonition. Maybe because Bruno Silva came back off the sauce and knocked out poor old Wellington Turman, Michel Prazeres is going to come out and knock out Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't know, but Michel Prazeres is one hell of a wrestler and one hell of a grappler, and that's what makes this fight so interesting.
Is he one hell of a grappler at 40, though? That's what I keep on going back to, because for me, Michel Prazeres is a weird fighter, because throughout his career, you bring up some of the guys he beat, like, go back and look at that Gilbert Burns fight. He beat him by out-grappling him, oddly enough, by being the heavier guy on top and holding down his opponent, and that's what Prazeres is really good at doing, oddly enough. Like, he doesn't really wow you with any of his skill sets, and I always think back to this Trae Young article, and I hate Trae Young, but Trae Young said, listen, my athleticism is not going to wow you, but when it comes to the fundamentals, I know what I'm doing, and I've got to give him credit. Like, he's 6 feet tall, but he's as good as guys who are 7 feet tall, because fundamentally he is so sound. And for Prazeres, he's a very fundamentally sound grappler. And I know people talk about the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, but he is a very Jake Shields-esque kind of a grappler. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way, because he will secure a lot more submission wins that way, but he is much more control-based over submission-oriented. And even if you look at a lot of the submission wins, they're more because he gets his opponent down. He's able to tire them out, get them into a bad position, and then submit them. He's not like a Charles Oliveira who's going to go from the clinch, jump onto your back in one movement, and then try to beat it by a rear naked choke. He has a much more methodical way of going from point A to point B.
You never see back-to-back north-south choke wins. He has them against on old Josh Perkman and then Mads Burnell, who, listen, Mads was a little early, first time in the UFC. He's good with Bellator now, but that's incredible.
And exactly, those are very impressive wins. And as someone who has over a day played in UFC 4, I've never gotten a single north-south choke in my whole life. So the fact that this man was able to do it twice in an actual competition is very impressive. For me, though, this is one of those weird fights that does come down to height and reach, and those are two things that you do have to talk about, because Prazeres, to win this fight, has to get his hands around Rakhmonov. I don't think anybody out there thinks that Michel Prazeres can beat Rakhmonov in a kickboxing fight. You'd be crazy if you could think that. He's giving up so much reach and so much height, and that's why I think his wrestling is going to struggle, because Rakhmonov can stand at such a distance to where he'll be able to fire off kicks and punches from so far away that I don't think Prazeres is going to be able to take advantage of Rakhmonov opening up and then, oh wow, I can shoot him for my takedown there. Prazeres at the age of 40 doesn't have that same explosiveness in his takedown attempts, and I don't think he's going to have the cardio to be able to match a guy like Rakhmonov at the age of 28. And with Rakhmonov, like, the hype is there for a reason. He is 13-0, all wins coming by stoppage. What is it? 7 by knockout, 6 submission, or the other way around, one or the other. Like, he's so well-rounded in those two aspects of the jiu-jitsu and the kickboxing to where I really think that this fight's going to be a showcase fight for Rakhmonov. For Prazeres, and listen, that's not really much of a hot take, I don't think. He's fighting a 40-year-old who probably doesn't belong in the weight class. But for Rakhmonov, I understand that a lot of people are hesitant because his takedown defense is a little bit porous, and that's what Prazeres is so good at. But at this stage of their careers, I just think Prazeres can be that same fighter who can march his guys forward like a smaller Yoel Romero, and then go for the takedown. I think he is going to eat quite a bit of damage at range throughout this fight, and I do think that damage is going to accumulate as this fight
for Shavkat Rakhmonov, this guy coming out of Kazakhstan, top team, but we've also seen him out of Sanford MMA here recently training, and I threw down a few of the names that he was with, but obviously you have Henry Hooft in the picture. A couple of other big names. Nick Lentz, I feel like that's a body that really can kind of replicate Michel Prazeres, little short, little thick, especially for a retired Nick Lentz. Also had Fiziev there, which I was kind of surprised to see. I had to go to Fiziev's Instagram, do a little bit of a deep dive, but he is training at Sanford MMA. But he also has with him Sergey Morozov and Zhalgas Zhumagulov in some of the pictures in Florida. The boys from Kazakhstan representing in just a hot and sticky state. Matt, getting ready for this fight, you've got Shavkat Rakhmonov, the biggest mover and shaker on this card so far. He opened a -150, he's -275 right now. For Prazeres, he opened a +130, he's now a +218. And if we have a look over on Tapology, 957 total votes, 90% Rakhmonov, 47% by decision, 40% by knockout. For the 10% that have Prazeres, 68% by decision. Matt, here's the part where I'm going to be brutally honest. I've had people hit me up on Instagram all day today saying, my big parlay piece, my MVP is Shavkat Rakhmonov. And props to you. I'm too afraid to put this one on my card, and here's why. Michel Prazeres not that long ago, although again, he's a month shy of being 40. He's coming off a suspension. He looks like a brick shithouse on his Instagram because all he's done is lift weights and done kickboxing in the last 2 years. But for Michel Prazeres, I've seen his fights. He can grapple grapplers. He can grapple very good grapplers, the likes of a Bartosz Fabinski, and finish him in the first round. Now, could Andre Muniz do it?
He can't close range, though.
Sure. That's going to be the trouble for him. Can Prazeres close the range and take Rakhmonov down? I think there's more than a snowball's chance in hell. That's why this fight scares the hell out of me. I wouldn't have it on my card for those reasons. Having said that, I will take Rakhmonov, but I could smell an upset in this fight.
Dana White, I don't know if you watch these videos, but if you do, if Rakhmonov wins this, give us the Eliseo Zaleski dos Santos one. That's the fight that I want to see. That's the fight that the fans want. No, I do agree. I think for Rakhmonov, this is a big opportunity, but it could go sour for him very fast. Because if you lose to a guy like Prazeres, who has, listen, like, I think Prazeres is a really good fighter. I respect what he's done. He has good wins. But if you lose to a 40-year-old in the wrong weight class, it's really going to hurt your star potential. So for Rakhmonov, this is a very pivotal fight in his career.
Michel Prazeres averages 4.11 takedowns per 15 minutes. That's absolutely insane. I can't wait for this fight. Both of us going reluctantly with Kazakhstan's Shavkat Rakhmonov. Let us know down below in the comments section who you're going with in this fight, because the upset wins. They're a-blowing. This is Poppin' Popcorn if we ever did see one. Big-time fights at the top of this card. We have Danilo Marques taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu. We also have Cyril Gane taking on Alexander Volkov. You're not going to want to miss it. Keep it locked in with Fight Night picks. And as we always say, let's get into it.